I believe God showed me insights that I never could have found by being in the Christian bubble of Valley Forge Christianity. But now, as a result, I can look back on those things and see how people would search for significance through a drink,
Right.
or a substance.
Let's keep it real. Yeah.
People would try to find significance through a significant other.
Yeah.
Or how they could find that through relationship physically.
My neighbors are pastors.
Okay.
And when I first met my neighbors, and Conrad was a pastor, one of the things I learned about him was he said, when you get to a certain level, when you're serving the Lord, sometimes you feel alone, like you have no one else to talk to.
Sure.
So tell us a little bit about what got you to this point, your childhood, because I'm sure there's a lot of things that brought you to this point. What was most significant in you guys' lives?
Everybody, how y'all doing? This is the second episode, and we are proud to announce that we have some special guests in the building. Of course, our podcast is called 80 for 80,000, and it represents most people. They try to live, or they live for, of course, the American dream, to have a longevity life and to live as long as they possibly can. And the average age is about maybe 80 years old for men and women. But our question is, are you living just to be 80 years old, or are you living for your future as far as 80,000 years? And what that means, life after here on earth. And what will people say about you maybe 20,000 years from now, even 80,000 years from now? And so we are so proud. My name is Stefano Lewis, and this is...
I'm Moses Newsom.
All right. And our guests today are prestigious pastors, Bernie and Sarah Gillott. Welcome. Moses, why don't you open up?
About this podcast, my neighbors are pastors.
Okay.
And when I first met my neighbors, and Conrad was a pastor, one of the things I learned about him was he said, when you get to a certain level, when you're serving the Lord, sometimes you feel alone, like you have no one else to talk to.
Sure.
So tell us a little bit about what got you to this point, your childhood, because I'm sure there's a lot of things that brought you to this point. What was most significant in you guys' lives coming up, growing up, before you even came into what God spoke of your life? And
before we start that, let's give a little foundation. So, Pastor Bernie and Pastor Sarah have been in the area for many years now. They were born in Pennsylvania. Pastor was actually raised in Virginia for a good part of his youth. Sarah was raised in Pennsylvania. They have launched an amazing ministry, and they've had some obstacles to overcome, which we're going to go deep into that later on in the podcast. But go ahead, start.
Well, I think I can speak for both of us, but I want you to answer as well. For me, I really believe that family is one of those key foundational pieces. We both come from strong families of faith, and my parents have been in ministry since I can remember. They started working with Teen Challenge when I was 3. And we were there for 10 years in Pennsylvania, and then moved to Canada for 3 years, where they helped pioneer a national center for Teen Challenge in Canada.
Wow.
And we left there at the beginning of my freshman year of high school. So we moved down to Hampton, Virginia, and I started attending Phoebus High School.
Wow.
In 1993.
Wow.
That's where I started playing football and basketball and tennis, and even swam a little bit.
Okay.
A lot of great memories during those time periods.
Awesome.
But for me, faith-wise, I wasn't sure that I was really ready to dedicate myself to what I knew God had called me to.
Right.
So I'm totally transparent. I graduated high school with my own intentions in mind.
Right.
And I went to George Mason University.
Okay.
I attended there for my freshman year of college, did well, had a great time, made great friends, rushed a steak fraternity without hazing and all of the musty that stuff. You know that some of those are out there a little different. Still friends with some of these brothers. One of those brothers is on our launch.
Oh, wow.
And at any rate, I remember between my freshman and sophomore year of college, I was really enjoying my time. And I was about 2 weeks from going back to George Mason, where I now had a full ride between being an RA and my academics. Everything was covered. I was good to go.
Right.
But I remember being in church one day, and one of the people that I respect in my life walked across the church to me after service and said, "You know, you're not preparing for what God's called you to."
Wow.
And I was like,
Right.
so I cried right then and there, and I walked back across the sanctuary towards my younger brother, Chris, and I said, "Do you know who your roommate is?"
Right.
And he said, "No." And I said, "I do." And so I went from having a full ride at George Mason to being $6,000 short for my tuition and not even accepted at Valley Forge Christian College, which is where my bride-to-be would be. Can you imagine how long it would have gone if I didn't get there at the right time? And I can just tell you, it would be way wrong, because my life is way better because she's in it.
Yeah.
And so then I went to Valley Forge, and God started working on me and preparing me, and graduated after 4 years, played 4 years of basketball, had lots of opportunities. We traveled representing the school for PR. And I remember graduating school, and it was before we graduated.
Right.
We started in March of our senior year commuting twice a week to Harrisburg to our first position as staff pastors. And that lead pastor, Stephen Rhodes, what I don't owe to family, what I don't owe to my wonderful wife and to God, I absolutely owe to Steve Rhodes. He was a great mentor. He saw in us and called out in us what we couldn't even see in ourselves.
Wow.
I remember sitting on his couch in his office, and he would say, "Bernie, you're going to be a lead pastor someday." And I remember sitting there and going, "Nope." To lead worship and be a youth pastor.
Right.
I'm doing this for the rest of my life. And he said, "No, you're going to be, and I'm going to prepare you to be."
Wow.
And so in that process, he spoke into both of our lives.
Right.
He spoke favor and greatness and the things that God could only call out.
Right.
And those preparatory moments were the moments that prepared us for the moments of the last 5 to 6 years that were maybe challenging, but God had prepared us for those moments.
Right.
Wow.
That's
Wow.
interesting. Wow.
After 22 years in ministry now and life, looking back, and we talk about what brings you to the point, going back as far as that first job at Bible school, we weren't even married yet. We would come home. So the school we went to was outside of Philadelphia.
Right.
We would come to see his parents and to visit. And we would say, "We'll come back to Hampton someday."
Wow.
I don't know what it's going to be, what it's going to look like.
Right.
His dad was working at the time at Youth Challenge, which was a faith-based drug and alcohol rehabilitation program. We said maybe it'll be there. We had degrees in counseling.
Yeah.
We don't know. We just know God's going to bring it back around.
Yeah.
That was 27 years ago. And then from there we saw, because sometimes you don't see it till you look back.
Right.
Look back and say, "Okay, oh God, you were preparing us there."
Right.
We planted that seed.
Yeah.
The things that Pastor Rhodes spoke into us taught us about legacy.
Yeah.
Taught us about how do you see outside yourself? How do you invest in somebody else? So when we went to different churches, we would say, "Oh, he just needs someone to sit with him and invest in him. She just needs someone to walk alongside her."
Someone to believe in.
Yeah,
Right.
he planted that in us. So all along the way, we would start to see snapshots of what is the bigger thing God's calling us to? Like you're saying, are we living for today or for beyond today?
Correct.
What are the bigger things? And so different things, like we would go and serve in a church, and there was, maybe some painful things that would happen in the church. And we would learn, how do you walk alongside people who are hurting?
Yeah.
How do you really walk with them in their pain? All of that really taking us then. We moved back to Virginia in 2015. Actually, our kids just said to me the other day, it's been almost 10 years to the day since we moved back to Virginia.
Wow.
So we've been here for a while.
Wow.
Congratulations.
Wow. Yeah, congratulations. Yeah.
But God opened the door. I had been staying home with the kids, working in the churches and stuff like that, but opened the door for me to work in the public schools.
Yeah.
And it was a time of questioning of well, God, am I not going to work in a church anymore? What am I going to do? And God showed, oh no, this is your ministry. This is a ministry to go into public schools and to see and walk in. Sometimes we can separate ourselves from people if we can get into a ministry bubble or a church bubble. We have to be in a community, working with people in the community. And so I got to see, okay, what are parents walking through? What are families going through? And then God would start to kind of speak to us. This is what families need you to help them. This is what they need. So even now to come to this point, launching a new church and saying, what are we passionate about? It's all the things God has shown us over the last 20 years. That we didn't know. How are you going to use this? Oh God, how will you ever use this in the future? Oh, here's how.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. We're going to learn, how to start from the ground up, how to do different things like that.
Yeah.
But really have a heart for the community. And now look back and say, okay, 22 years later, you did bring us back to Hampton.
Yeah.
And you do have a plan for us in Hampton.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't know what it would look like.
Yeah.
We don't know what it'll look like 10 years from now. But we know we can trust God.
Yeah.
It's brought us to this point.
So question for you. So you had a mentor come in your life, and say, here's what you're doing. That's not what you had no idea this was going to happen to you. So a lot of times when these things happen, you can either accept what God has placed on your heart, or you can say, heck no, I'm not, this is not for me. So what was that transition like?
It's funny. For me, it was like a light switch.
Okay.
Because I went from being totally content being a Phi Sigma Kappa brother, headed back to George Mason in 2 weeks, to being a guy who called those same brothers and said, here's the deal, guys. I know this doesn't surprise you,
right?
But I'm going into full-time ministry. Wow. And they were like, yep, makes sense.
Wow.
Like my nickname was Flanders because I never cursed.
Wow. Bars. Wow. Wow.
They were little testimonies along the way that they saw.
That's good.
And you asked the question about legacy and versus just living.
Right.
Yes.
And one of my favorite quotes, it kind of lines up with living for more than just now. It says, don't fear failure. Fear succeeding at something that doesn't really matter.
Wow.
Bars.
How often do we go, hey, I've got to
Bars.
do this.
Yeah. Bars.
And I find if we're living for something bigger than ourselves, we're never going to find ourselves regretting the legacy we leave behind.
That's right.
And that's why being a part of the church, and that's not a church, I mean the church,
right?
The church holistic, we have a chance in a community like Hampton, in a community like Hampton Roads, where there is so much, and we can change the world from right here. Because think about all of the military branches that are in this community. Everyone nearby, right?
Wow.
How many thousands? 82,000 people? Person in the military forces in this area.
Right.
And we have a chance to be family to them.
Right.
We have a chance to be a safe haven for them because they're giving, they're sacrificing, their loved ones are off serving, and they're left here with the kids.
Right.
What can Hampton Roads as a community, what can Connection Church as a community create connection for them?
Right.
Where they've got a support system and I read somebody, I can't remember who it is, but they said it's not your biological family, it's your logical family.
Woo! Bars. Wow. Wow. Come on now.
And that's
Come on now.
Church is called to, because
Wow.
we believe we're called to create a place where people can find a healthy place to know Jesus and share it. And know they can be connected to God, each other, and their God-given purpose.
Wow.
And so we look at it from the perspective of there are thousands and thousands. There's the one statistics we read is 170,000 people live in this community. 70% of them would profess that they don't even have a home church.
Wow.
That's a staggering fact. I would have never expected to hear that kind. So that means there are thousands and thousands of people. They're great people.
Right.
They're doing the best they can. They're making the best decisions they can, but they're walking without a faith community beside them.
Right.
They're walking without personal relationship with Jesus.
Yeah.
And so when they face challenges, when they face tragedy,
come on
they
now.
don't have the hope, the peace, the joy, and the love that come only from Jesus.
Right.
And they don't have a faith community to help pick them up. They're walking alone.
Right.
And so we have a chance as a community to create a safe haven where we believe that great, amazing things happen when good people meet a great God.
Wow. Pastor Bernie, Pastor Sarah. So one of the things that we like to touch on is the fact that, a lot of times our circumstances in our youth overall establish what we become as adults.
Absolutely.
And so our question for you is, as a child or in your adolescence, when you were like maybe 10, 12 years old, we want to pay off both of you on this. What were some of the experiences you experienced then that have produced who you are now?
So for me, do you want to go first, sweetheart? Because I would like to defer to you. There are people who would look at my journey and see me go to George Mason, and they would say, "You wasted a year." Because why didn't you go right to what God told you to?
Right.
But my answer to them would be this. My going to George Mason for a year prepared me for ministry in a way that I never could have prepared just by going to Valley Forge. Because I got a chance to walk through more of life as an adult and see what are people struggling with. What does it feel like to try to find significance as an adult?
Right.
As an emerging adult trying to find out who I'm designed to be. And in that year, I believe God showed me insights that I never could have found by being in the Christian bubble of Valley Forge Christian College.
Right.
But now as a result, I can look back on those things and see how people would search for significance through a drink.
Right.
Or or a substance.
Let's keep it real.
Right.
Yeah.
Or would try to find significance through a significant other.
Yeah.
Or how they could find that through relationship physically.
Right.
And as a result, I learned it's so much more than that.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't fulfill. That doesn't give me purpose in life. And right now, one of my greatest legacies is our children.
Yeah.
It is watching 3 children who are growing up, 18, 16, and 14. One that's a freshman at Virginia Wesleyan playing field hockey in their honors college. Another one who's a junior at Kickotan, another freshman at Kickotan. And watching them learn to be who they can be in God. Learning how to walk out their faith in real life and helping them accept that in this process, it's not all a straight line.
Right.
You don't have to be perfect. You're gonna make mistakes. The question isn't, do you fail? The question is, did you get up one more time and you failed?
Right.
If you keep doing that, that helps you keep growing. So for me, the switch from just walking my own road to being called in a full-time ministry was a quick one, because I knew it all along. I wasn't quite Jonah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I wasn't fully surrendered.
Right.
And when I fully surrendered, it was easy because it was like hand in glove.
Right.
Because that's what God designed me for.
Absolutely.
Wow.
What about you, Speedy?
I think for me, one of the biggest things I learned throughout my childhood that really, it changes the way I work with people now is I was the questioner.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Don't just tell me.
Get real, Steph.
It's about to get real.
And my parents were amazing. They would let me. And I tell people this all the time, like, I would never be a follower of Jesus if my parents hadn't let me ask questions.
Yeah.
If they had just said because we said so.
Right.
Right. Oh,
No, it was,
that's good.
Right.
That's good. Let's talk about it.
Bring your questions, bring your, and so they let me. And so then the questions, along with, I found some of the most significant people in my life were the people who were real with their questions, real with what they had walked through. And it was easy for me I was a perfectionist, I was driven, I wanted to be successful. I wanted to find my identity in being successful, to accept, I'm not gonna be perfect.
Okay.
Questions. I can watch other people who ask questions and walk the journey. And now we find, we were youth pastors, talk about the doors God opens, you don't expect. Back to Hampton, we're not necessarily expecting to go back into youth ministry. And there were days I was like, oh, we are so old for this.
Okay. All right.
When we were in youth ministry, we had much less, silver in our hair. But
Gotcha.
But looking through all that and walking, it became so pronounced to me that it was like God said, the reason I made you to ask questions and gave you people who would let you ask questions is because this generation won't listen to a word you say until you listen to what they have to say. Now, we found that so much in youth ministry. Look, we can't talk at them.
Right.
We don't live in an era anymore where your title earns you the right to speak into their life.
Right.
You have to be walking with them. You have to earn it.
Sometimes in today's society, a title is not a positive. Sometimes establishment is a negative.
Yeah.
And so we've got to be willing to earn the right to be heard.
Right.
We've got to be willing to hear them fully.
Yeah.
So they'll even hear us a little.
Yeah. And so learning how to ask questions back then instead. Like, tell me what you think about. How do you feel about it?
Yeah.
What is your experience? It it may have been true when I was a teenager that my parents could have said, oh, well, I was a teenager once too.
Yeah.
But now, what teenagers today live is not what I lived as a teenager.
Oh, totally.
What they experience, what they face. And so if I don't listen and truly take time to hear, I won't understand what they're facing. And I can't even walk with them.
Right.
So I think the whole idea of questions and telling them it's okay, ask your questions.
Right.
Let's talk about it. To admit you're teaching me.
Right.
You're bringing something to the table. Then they see themselves as legacy.
Right.
They see they're not the next generation. They're now.
Yeah.
How many teenagers have social media and they're influencing other people? Our teenagers are influencers.
Yeah.
So let's in a safe, healthy environment, say, let's process it together.
Yeah.
Let's walk the journey together.
Wow.
Then they're going to take their voice now
Right.
and broadcast it that says, this is what it looks like to be loved. This is what it looks like to not survive but thrive.
Right.
This is how we look for bigger. So I think the whole concept of being able to ask questions taught me how to listen to their questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
And,
Wow.
I think one of the cool things about what Connection Church is about to become as we launch on January 19th is this has been our heart's cry since 2002.
Wow.
So
the seed was already planted.
So here's crazy. The first youth ministry that we ran was called Connection Student Ministries.
Okay.
And we were based off of it. Back then it was connecting students to God, each other, and their calling.
Right.
That's too Christian of a word to use today. The calling, hey, calling. No, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about purpose.
Right.
But that has been weaved in and out of our ministry since we started out the gate. And now, when we were praying, I remember looking at part of the team and saying, guys, I don't want to take the okie doke and say Connection Church, but the reality is I feel like if I'm going to lead this church the way God's called me to, I feel like it should be in line with God's called me to from the beginning.
Yeah.
And I think so that's where you get back to, we understand that Jesus changes everything. But once you get connected, you'll never be the same.
Right.
And when people start to realize,
Wait, say that again.
once you get connected, you'll never be the same.
Wow.
Because Jesus changes us he runs us for normal.
Right.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
So what was easy to just get on by? No, I now know there's a greater purpose for my life.
Yeah.
I know there's a greater decision-making acumen that I have because I'm not living for just today.
Yeah.
I'm living for tomorrow and the future, legacy. And when these students get empowered to understand that God has divine calling and purpose for them, all of a sudden they start thinking about their decisions a little better.
Yeah.
They're not just going, hey, I'd really like to do this one thing, but they're going, yeah, but I don't know if it's worth it because of the big thing.
Right.
Wow. Wow.
Well, you said something that really struck me. You said that you had to, at one point, allow people to look at your life and look at how God is working in your life. I got saved about 15 years ago. And before I got saved, I was in the world doing things my way.
Sure.
The way that I thought was the path to go. And I kept getting these brick walls. I kept having these things. I kept saying, well, why is this not working?
Talk about it.
That I think is the right way to do it.
Talk about it.
Let him hear it. Let him hear it.
Hitting the brick wall.
Yeah.
And then I got this before I met my wife. And then at some point I said, I gave up. I said, God, you know what? I give up. I surrender. I'm going to do it how you wanted to do it. And he changed my life. Long story short, a good friend of mine who I grew up with was not living in Christ.
Sure.
And when I changed my life, naturally, it was natural for me to go to him and say, I got this great message. I got to tell you all about it. And we got into a really, really bad argument. And then my pastor at the time told me, what you have to do is don't go to him and try to bring him into Christ. Let him see Christ working through you.
Wow.
How did that affect you? Was that your same journey, or did you have a friend similar in your life that kind of got in that same circumstance?
That's good.
Talk to me about that.
That's good.
I think it was probably more when I went to Bible school, going to college with people who hadn't lived a life that was the same as mine, that God brought us to the same place.
Okay.
And say, well, then what was your journey? What was your journey?
Right.
Look how God put pieces together.
Right.
And look how your journey teaches me something about life.
Yeah.
And my journey teaches you something. So I think that started it. And then starting to realize, transparency was not easy for me. I was more of a guarded person, and that's more like,
Independent.
I mean, you've met my husband's family.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm a little bit more like the choir server. But God started to challenge me, like, until people hear your story.
Right.
And, I was thinking, just even getting ready for church tomorrow, one of the things, just look at like you judge a message, you vet whether you're going to listen to it based on the message, right? If I get an email and I see that sender is spam, am I going to open it and read it?
No.
No, I got to trust the messenger.
Right.
Wow.
So we have the hope.
That's good.
Our message falls flat until they've seen our lives.
Yeah.
And sometimes waiting for that is so
Yes.
hard though, right?
Yes.
Especially at the beginning, you're like, oh, God,
Yes.
it's like,
Right,
God,
right,
like,
exactly.
oh, if you could just,
Yes.
but just say, all right, God, I'm going to trust the plan.
Right.
I'm gonna trust. It's the same. We talk a lot about witnessing to people that sometimes students will get so, like our own kids would invite friends to church and things like that and get so discouraged. And we're like, plant a seed.
Yeah.
It's God's timing because everyone's on a journey. You don't know how someone's going to look back and say, it might be someone else. And it's how it says it in the word. God said there's some to plant, some to water. God gives the increase at the right time.
At the right time.
And so we have to wait. And my part in someone's story might not be that harvesting time. It might just be a planting.
Yeah.
It might just be they look back, oh yeah, I saw that in her life.
Yeah.
I saw. And that's kind of what our prayer is like, that people will just see it in our lives.
Yeah.
And then what's so different? But we can share about it at that point. So
I think sometimes as believers, we can have this heart that is totally pure. Like our intentions are pure, but to quote one of my favorite movies, Tommy Boy, circus boy with this crazy new pet. When I want people to know Jesus, I want people to know Jesus, I want people to know Jesus. And if we would just let Jesus shine, let Jesus speak through our lives, instead of trying to bring them to that point of decision, sometimes walking with someone is far more important than saying, do you know?
Oh, yeah.
And I think when we can let them feel okay without being perfect, it changes everything for them, because now they feel like they can be honest. Okay, yeah, you didn't ask me to check this box and check this box and dress nice and do this.
Right.
I can just be me.
You.
The beautiful thing about Jesus is he catches his fish first, then he cleans them.
Wow.
We have this attitude that like people have to come to church and they have to be good enough.
Right.
Nope. We just have to be available.
Right. Yeah.
And if we will let people's hearts be made aware of their lack of perfection is no big deal. It removes the barriers to involvement. It removes the barriers to belief. And they don't have to believe to belong. They can be a part of
Mars.
Day one.
Right.
Come in, you're welcome. It's like Olive Garden. When you're here, you're family.
Right.
You come to church, find family, find a logical family, and let God change everything from the inside out.
Right.
because our testimony is what makes us relatable.
Right.
Right. And you think about it, everyone wants a miracle, but a miracle only happens if you had a trouble first.
There you go.
Wait. Say that again. Say that again.
There's no miracle without a trial.
Right.
Cool.
Or else what would the miracle have been? What did God rescue you from? What did God provide for?
Right.
So if we want to put on a front like we're perfect, then what did God really do in our lives?
How can you have a testimony?
Yeah.
Right, because the testimony has to be.
Gotta have the trial, get the testimony.
Well, what did God protect me from? What was the direction my friends went? I chose not to go. What are the things? But we have to be willing to be real.
Yeah.
To share that. And we try to do that. We say all the time, we're so far from perfect.
Right.
What about somebody said?
Like, no, His grace is sufficient.
So,
Well, and here's the thing. That's not just like a good principle.
uh,
That's God's promise. That's God's word.
Right.
2 Corinthians 12:9, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness.
Right.
But the society, that's not what culture tells you.
No.
You gotta be strong. But God's kingdom's upside down.
Yeah.
If you want to be great, be humble.
yeah.
Yeah.
And serve.
Yeah.
And so if we're willing to just surrender and trust God, He'll take us farther than we could go on our own.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
I'm sorry I talked over one.
No, you're good. You're good. We want to hear all that. So that moves us into our next topic. So the state of the church in America, which was we want that was a perfect segue to that. We all know that the state of the church right now is it's not in a great place. You know, the suicide percentage of pastors right now is up 25%.
Wow.
It's up 25% of just pastors just committing suicide. We have, of course, we have the situation where TD Jakes unfortunately took some pictures with Puff Daddy, and he was judged worldwide because he's one of the predominantly influencers in ministry in America. Joel Osteen went through a few obstacles in his life.
You're gonna have a hard time finding a well-known pastor that hasn't been through something.
Right. So my question to you is, with what's going on right now, hold on a second. With what's going on right now in the state of the church, you know, we have a new president coming in who's going to, unfortunately, he'll be sentenced with 20 or 30 years, but all of those mistakes that he's made will be gone. He won't serve any jail time.
Right.
And we don't know if Christ will be the focus going into 2025. And so our question is, the state of the church right now in America, what, with your launch and everything that's going on right now, what will you do as leaders to overcome the challenges of what now America faces in the state of the church?
That's a really, really good question. I think we can sometimes try to be so ambitious that we bite off more than we can chew. And I think we sometimes get over our skis.
Yeah.
We get to the point where we're forgetting that it's not about what we can do. It's only about what we can do in God.
Right.
You know, I think his name is, I can't remember Peter's last name, but he's a good speaker and a guy that I respect. He said, far too often, we ask God to bless what we're doing instead of asking God, what are you blessing? And let me be a part of that.
Right.
And I think that is one of the keys for the church of today. Are we going to say, God, I want to be in you and do what you've called me to do? Or am I going to focus on what can draw attention to me? What can make people see me?
Because if they see you, then if you make a mistake, then you're in trouble. Oh, wow. 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 Wow.
So I think anytime you elevate humanity to a pedestal, you're just headed for danger.
Right.
I follow me?
Yeah.
I'll let you down.
I'm going to let you down every time.
I can tell you, I'll let you down. I'm not your guy, you know. I was talking to a church planting friend on Christmas Eve, and we were talking about how planting a church is one of the most humbling things we've ever done in our lives. Because I've been in ministry for 22 plus years. I feel like I have a good idea of what to do, but I've realized how much I don't know and how easy it is to make mistakes. And this is humbling me and making me even more Christ dependent in a good way, more Christ dependent in my decision way, so that I can actually accomplish what he wants. So I'm afraid to answer your question because I don't want me to come through. I don't want Bernie Gillott to be, well, this is what the church needs today.
Right.
What we need is more of Jesus.
Right.
What we need is less rules and more closeness to Jesus.
Right.
And it's not prescriptive, it's relational.
Right.
And as we continue to get closer to God, he will give us clarity.
Yeah.
He will help us to know what to do and where to be. And he's faithful to help us if we're surrendered.
Right.
And I think one of the other things that we talk about the journey, like lessons God taught us to prepare us along the way, to be willing to, and we have to teach our leaders this, to be willing to apologize for something you didn't do.
Yes.
There are so many people.
Wait, say that again,
To
Pastor.
be willing to apologize for something you didn't do.
Oh, wow.
Because there are so many people we meet daily who talk about being hurt in the church.
Church hurt.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And we need to be willing to humbly look and say, I am so
Sorry.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm sorry for what you faced.
Right.
Did I do it? No, I don't even know the person. I don't know the experience. I don't know anything. Well, here's what I do know. I do know what church pain feels like.
Right.
And I do know that that's not the heart of Jesus that hurt him.
Right.
It's the fact that we live even pastors are still living in a broken world. Churches are still functioning in a broken world. So we're going to make mistakes.
Yes.
But to be willing to say to people, I am so sorry. I will hear your journey.
Yeah.
I am so sorry. And all I can say is, I will make mistakes sometimes, but if you want to just come along with us, we're all just walking the journey together. So I think being willing to say that, to acknowledge that people have been hurt. Sometimes I think that, like Big C Church, we say, Church Universal, Church in America, however we want to say it.
Yes.
We don't want to admit we've made mistakes and hurt people.
Right.
But in doing that, we shut people out more because we're not validating what their pain was.
Right.
And instead saying, I'm so sorry you walked through that. I apologize for that.
That's good. That's good. That's good.
Too, we've all felt it. To be willing to humbly apologize and then to be patient.
Yeah.
And say, you know what? I understand that if you come to Connection Church, you might be weary at first.
Right.
It's okay.
Yeah.
You might need to sit back because you need to just connect with Jesus before you connect with people. That's okay.
Right.
Yep.
Wherever you are on the journey, you're welcome.
And one specific thing I will say to your questions.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And that is this. If the church is going to get to where I believe God does want us to be, we have to be willing to apologize without the but. I'm sorry, but you got to understand what I was going through.
Right.
I'm sorry, but you got to give me some... No,
It's got to be a clear apology. I'm just sorry. Plain and simple.
I blew it.
I blew it.
Blow it again. Please forgive me for this moment of...
That's good. That's good. That's good.
And as we humble ourselves, the Bible says that. Humble yourself in the sight of the Lord and He'll lift you up.
That's right.
But we are so busy trying to keep up appearances and sights of perfection instead of just saying, guys, I'm real, I'm broken, and I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And I think also to accept different personalities,
Perspectives.
perspectives.
Yep.
And we talk about this.
Wait. Was that 3 P's? Personality, people, and perspective. Yeah. Bars. No, but go ahead.
We tell kids that, at the end of the day, there are things that are far easier to say than to do. So we can all say, we love everybody.
Right.
Well, that's a whole lot easier to say than do.
Where's the action?
Yeah.
There you go.
So that means, God, you can bring people with any personality into our church. Then you got to be ready for people with different personalities.
Yeah.
God, we want different perspectives. Then be ready for different perspectives.
Right.
And that's humbling.
Right.
It takes saying, anyone, I can learn from anybody. And God can bring and use anybody to share something. And
That's good.
to something, But it's being willing to say, admit, it's harder to do sometimes than to say.
Yeah.
And it's a process.
And that's part of why we have to celebrate our diversity.
Mm-hmm.
Because our diversity makes us stronger.
Yes.
What?
It makes us better. And as we continue to learn from one another, as we continue to celebrate one another, I think the best leaders are celebrating the people they're mentoring success. So when you succeed, I'm succeeding.
Right.
When I watch you grow and you hit that plateau you were trying to get to, that's our success.
Right.
We celebrate that together. And I think that is when you see people who are true leaders instead of just, hey, everybody look at me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Everybody look at me on this platform.
And I don't believe we set out to be there.
Right.
Don't hear me like casting aspersions towards people and saying, what's wrong with this person and that person?
Yeah.
I'm not better than anybody else.
Yeah.
Because we don't even set out to do that. But
That's good.
like Nathan, when he looked at David and he said, you are that man. Like, oh, man.
Wow. Wow.
So when you think about diversity, equity, inclusion, because that's a big deal.
Sure.
In a lot of my pastor, a pastor lives next door to me.
Sure.
And one of the things that he talked about, he wants to get in the marketplace.
Sure.
And when you think about diversity, equity, inclusion, what does that mean to you? And are we where we need to be when it comes to diversity, equity, inclusion now?
Whew.
We in the church or we in the home?
Just as a culture, are we where we need to be now?
Well, those are throughout. I'll go just because those buzzwords are in my.
Yes.
Those are buzzwords.
We talk about that because it's important.
Yeah.
We talk about, how are we ensuring? And I'm just saying first, within teaching in the public schools,
Absolutely.
how are we I've taught, it's interesting. I started teaching in Gloucester County,
Mm-hmm.
and now I teach in Hampton City.
Okay.
I want to take a snapshot of 2 different school districts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Talk about diversity. Okay.
Yeah. In both, there are individual students, there are segments of the population, there are who can be so overlooked. And so sometimes I think part of the issue is we actually will broad brush instead of seeing individuals.
Right.
And that's the danger. And I think in the church, we need to, like to bring it back, to be able to see every individual as an individual. What's the journey that you're bringing? What's the experience you're bringing? Because you are so valuable.
Right.
And then how can I meet you?
Yeah.
We say this a lot, that we want to make sure it's easy to come into a community and say, this is what we want to offer. It's harder and more, what we think more important to walk into a community and say, how can we serve you? What do you need?
Sure.
It's
How
instead
can
of
we
coming
serve?
in, and saying, oh, this is what we offer,
Right.
what do you need? But then that takes having open dialogue.
Right.
And saying, we're here for the good, bad, the ugly.
Right.
What is it that you need?
Right.
What are, so at school, I see families, the things they go through, and they feel like islands.
Yeah.
Especially with I work in middle schools, but with teenagers, young teenagers, what they're facing,
Right.
we're still, I won't get off, the whole, but like what students who were elementary schoolers during COVID, what they face now, just in adjustment and stuff like that.
Yes.
Families feel alone. They feel isolated.
Yeah.
How do we come alongside them?
Right.
How can we serve them?
Right.
Sure.
And that's where bringing the community together. It could be through something like youth ministry. We already have a youth group, like our church day and lunch, and we have a youth group because we see this need.
Right.
Students need a place to come where we say, it doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter. I had a conversation.
Yeah.
I don't care who you were with right before you came.
Right.
You are always welcome, because one of the boys looked at us and we had an event at our house. Well, I didn't know if I could come or not because I was just, you can always come.
Yeah.
This is a safe place.
Yeah.
But they need a place to know that.
That's right.
And then the more we provide that, they become that for each other.
Yeah.
Then the bridges get, because it doesn't work if it's just a bridge between one person.
Correct.
If we can bring people in and then say, all right, now let's all form the bridges.
Right.
Let's form one solid
Right.
place. I don't think there's an easy answer. I don't think there's an easy fix.
I think
I don't want to minimize anything.
well, I think when you think about diversity, equity, and inclusion, the biggest words that stands out to me is being included.
Yeah.
And
That's good.
I think there's still a gap that we still have to fill. And what I like what you said is we can't go into a community assuming what they need without asking questions.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Learning the community, understanding, and having an open heart.
Yes.
Because I think that, being a man of God, being in Christ, you got to be ready for what God's telling you.
Yeah.
And sometimes we're not always ready. When God is giving you that message, if your heart is not open and ready to receive that message and follow what He's telling you to do, you can miss the mark. And that could impact what we're talking about.
Talk about it. Wow.
What does that mean to you?
Well, I think part of it is we can be impatient in the journey.
Yeah.
So in our zest, we saw that happen in history, right?
Yes.
People that thought they were doing the right thing, they were zealots, but they didn't get the timing right.
Right.
And so sometimes it's also about saying, God, is it yes now, maybe, or wait?
Right.
Because sometimes we're pushing so hard with the purest of motives, but we're missing the chance to see people as they are, accept them as they are, and let God challenge them to change. It was Billy Graham who said, oh man, I don't want to mess up the quote. The idea is it's for God to judge. It's for me to love and for the Holy Spirit to convict.
Wow.
And sometimes the church slips into this idea that our job, instead of including, we're judging on the way in the doors. Right. Oh, you're not good enough. Here's your barrier why you can't. Right. But I believe God's called the church to be a place that accepts people as they are and lets God's love change them. It's not about how can you be what we are,
right?
Because we're all on a journey, on a different spot in the journey, and that's okay.
That's okay.
Sending the message that we have to be open and say, we need you.
Yeah.
Not we need you as long as you are.
Right.
Or we need you once you are.
Unconditional.
We need you.
Right.
We talk about
Love, no strings attached.
Right.
Yeah.
Because God's love is unconditional.
Absolutely.
Right? He doesn't put, imagine if God put conditions on his love for us. I mean, what
We'd be in
would
trouble.
life be like? Unconditional love.
Not preferred.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
Be long gone.
Yes.
So speaking of conditional love, let's talk about marriage for a second. Of course, Christ is married to the church,
Sure.
and he wants the church to be married to him.
Sure.
And so with marriage right now, it's very different from in the 1960s as opposed to in 2025.
Sure.
And so I'm single. I've never been married. Moses, you've been married for how many years now?
16 years.
Going on 16 years now. And so you guys have been married for how many more years? 22. So if you have a single person like myself who comes to Connections Church and wants to live a righteous life, or I won't be all religious, a good life that is in good standings with God.
Sure.
Okay. What is your message to myself, and as well as a message to a person like Moses, who him and his wife are arguing over the bills and
Sure.
everything like that?
Yeah.
Is the message the same, or is it very different coming from perspective of you two as leaders and a single person come to Connection Church and a married person come to Connection Church?
Sure.
So expand on that real quick
Well,
for us.
for me, one of the first things I'll say
Mhm.
is I spent a lot of time trying to find Mrs. Right. I spent a lot of time trying to make it all
Bars.
together. And I literally,
Goodness.
when I said, God, I give up,
Right.
I failed at trying to figure out how to make this matchmaking thing work.
Right.
Uh-huh.
It was like, I mean, I knew I loved Sarah before she even knew about me. Like, and when I gave up on trying to make all the things work, that's when all the pieces fell together.
Mm.
And it's like, we can try so hard as though our trying is going to create what we were designed for,
Right.
when actually, if we would just surrender,
So, oh.
it's freedom.
Bars. Man, say it again.
It's freedom through surrender.
Yes.
Okay.
It's free to be where we were called to be, who we were called to be, with whom we were called to be, as we surrender to God and say, God, I want what you want from me. And we act like it's this great surrender
Right.
when we were giving up trash for his treasure.
Right.
And so in this journey, one of the things I say all the time is, it's not about Mrs. Right now,
Right.
it's about Mrs. Right.
Mhm.
But we've got impatient,
Right.
trying to create what we want. And I think the beautiful thing is God's designed us for something better than we can imagine.
Mm.
But we spend so much time trying to create that better than we can
Yes.
imagine that we make it a mess.
Right.
And I think one of the things for me is, for you, Steph,
Mm-hmm.
I want you to see us modeling a healthy relationship.
Okay.
So you can see what you're working towards. Because in this journey, you're going to be looking for, what should I be looking for in a spouse?
Mhm.
All right.
Right? And you can see the way I respect Pastor Sarah and the way Pastor Sarah respects me. And you can see, oh, that's what I should be looking for.
Mhm.
And you guys as a couple can also see, okay, I did just watch them disagree.
Mhm.
That happens.
Yep.
You know, you want to disagree about
Yeah.
right now. How to make money, how to spend it.
Right.
That is one of the top arguments in relationships.
Yeah.
Okay.
Never disagree.
I love you so much. I appreciate you saying that.
Okay, I said we should be transparent.
Yeah.
Hang on.
Yeah.
But I think that in this journey, being willing to let people see that it's not all rainbows and butterflies.
Right.
You know, how did we disagree? How can you disagree agreeably?
Mhm.
Right? It doesn't have to get personal. And I think one of the keys for us, and I was probably about 10 or 15 years ago, when we were watching couples not always see eye to eye. And there's something to sarcasm. Listen, you know, Steph, I can be sarcastic, right?
Yeah.
But what we learned is the right time for sarcasm. Okay? So when Sarah is with the other ladies and they're all chatting,
Mm-hmm.
I know she will never say something bad about me while I'm not there.
Oh.
She's not gonna tell
Oh.
oh, you know what my husband did last night?
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah.
Right.
No.
There you go.
And in the same way, when we're chilling, she's never going to have to wonder, am I telling why didn't she do this or do that? No, that is part of the trust that is the foundation of healthy relationships.
Well, why is that important? On that, because that's deep. Because the devil is always looking for a crack
Absolutely.
to get into relationships.
He's the questioner.
And before me and my wife got married, we went through marriage counseling for 6 months. And people always think counseling is when something bad happens. It's for us, it was proactive.
Self-awareness is a good thing.
Correct. And we had marriage counselors, and one of the things that we talked about was, communication. And when we go through our situations, is it a good idea to share those situations with my mother-in-law? Because we can make up, she remembers it.
Yes.
All the time. Yep.
Yes.
And it allows the devil to get into a crack and crevice of something that God's already repaired.
Sure. When I'm sharing my struggles with her, like, okay, this one time Steph was mean to me. I'm just kidding. But if I share with Sarah, Steph did something, I didn't appreciate it. It hurt me. Okay. Now I go talk to Steph and I say, bro, it hurt me. We mend fences. We're good.
Right.
But I've got to be careful how I share what I share, because what can happen is now Sarah is carrying my offense of what Steph and I didn't get along on. I might have been wrong.
Right.
Because my version of the story, that I always believe there's three sides to every story. There's my side, there's your side, there's the truth. There's always a little bit of emotion involved, right? And so I've got to be careful how I walk down that road, how I portray things to my wife, because we can, again, build crevices in there that are danger spots.
Well, it's interesting because we decided that a long time ago with us as a couple. And then when we had kids, we made the same commitment. We wouldn't complain about our kids to our friends. And we would say that to our kids too. And they saw it. When families were together, we weren't cracking jokes complaining about, our kids are so.
I wish my kids would.
Yeah.
I feel that even as teenagers, they reciprocate that respect back to us.
Wow.
I have people tell me all the time, oh man, one of my coworkers, one of my teammates at work last year, she would say, I think your daughter's your biggest fan.
Yeah.
But every time I talk to her, she's telling me great things about you. But to go back to your question and Steph, when you talk about whether a person is in a relationship or not a relationship, that comes back to what a godly relationship looks like across the board. Really, the danger
That's
comes
good.
back that often in our marriages, we'll treat a spouse in a way we would never treat a friend. But there's something about that, so that like openness that we do, and that's a danger as parents sometimes too. And we say that in ministry, like God forbid, God forbid we ever treat the congregation better than our kids.
Right.
But that comes back to then what are we really learning? What does a godly relationship look like? Well, what did Jesus teach us?
Right.
Jesus taught us how to serve others.
Right.
So whether it's in a relationship that's in a marriage or a coworker or a friend, what do godly relationships look like?
Right.
Because what happens is we define ourselves by our relationship status. And isn't that what we do so often in our society? Well, you're defined by whether you're in a relationship or not.
Right.
And we want to really share with people like, that doesn't define you. An aspect of your
Pastor. Oh my God.
Relationship with Christ.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. So when you pursue that first, and Bernie's always said it, even when you have two people, because, especially like in the dating time or whatever, if you're going to Jesus and they're going to Jesus, then you'll naturally come closer together.
Right.
But that's the first relationship.
Right.
But though, unfortunately, our culture defines people by their relationship.
Yeah.
Well, now start with relationship with Jesus.
Right.
What does that healthy look like? And then in his time, he'll bring the right person or not bring her or move somebody out of whatever. But what's the priority?
Yeah.
So
I think one of the principles that I think is incredibly important is being gracious. Okay. And this is a Pastor Sarah-ism. She says, I want to extend the same amount of grace to others that I want extended to me. And that's a good principle right there.
That's good.
We would have far less arguments in life if we were always giving the same benefit of the doubt to everybody else that we want for ourselves.
Correct.
That person cut us off and they're driving down the street. Well, maybe they've got somebody who's sick in the car and they need to get there and it's okay.
Yeah.
That person who's driving slowly and they're not letting us get to where we want to get to.
Right.
Well, maybe they're carrying a birthday cake that's really special and they got to get it there safely.
Yeah.
What if we had that kind of attitude?
Yes. Yes.
Because if we had that same kind of graciousness
Yeah.
just ingrained into who we are, I believe it would change everything.
It would. I mean, if people walked around, I don't know if you remember the old Peanuts cartoons when we were
Yes.
younger, and they had the little bubbles over the head and kind of said,
What were they thinking?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We would naturally get grace.
Yes.
But we just have to pretend like everybody has the bubble and there's something in that bubble that's affecting their lives and we don't know about it.
Sure.
And we got to have grace. And that's kind of what is that.
That's good.
Absolutely.
That's
And
good.
sadly, I think one of the things that's making our society so challenging is instead of the benefit of the doubt,
Mhm.
we often presume malice instead of oops. And that is the foundation for disagreement.
Right.
That is when there wasn't even disagreement.
Yeah.
We might have been agreeing,
Right.
but I presumed malice upon you,
Right.
and now all of a sudden we're at odds.
You're assuming the word.
But we agreed,
Yeah.
but we didn't even know.
Right.
One of the church, I can't remember where we were at the time because it was a long time ago. I don't even know if I was upset about something. I can't remember the context where it came up. But I just remember saying it when someone says something about being upset. And I just said, there are enough people in life
Yes.
who are going to offend me on purpose. I choose not to be offended by the ones who are doing it accidentally.
Oh, wow.
Another
Say-
Pastor Sarah.
Wait. Pastor, say it again. Say it again.
Enough people in life who will offend me on purpose.
Yes.
I choose not to be offended by the ones who are doing it accidentally.
Wow.
Wow.
They have no intent to.
Talk about it.
Wow.
Change your whole life outlook.
Yes, it does.
Because,
It's a mindset.
partially because I believe that God sees our hearts.
Yeah.
And so there are times where we're going to mess up, but God says, but I saw what your heart was.
Right. Exactly.
You didn't really mean it.
It's okay, kiddo.
And it's like, just like you were saying,
That's
that
right.
same grace
Yeah.
that we want from others, the same grace we enjoy from God,
Right.
we extend. And I do say, people, be real about it. It's a lot easier said than done,
It is.
right?
It is.
But I say, I truly believe that God offers grace to us, not just for us,
Mhm.
but He gives us the grace to extend it.
Exactly.
And in those moments where we look at, and I say, in my humanity, I cannot forgive that person. I can't, because I believe there are points in our life
Right.
where we say, in my humanity, I cannot forgive what happened.
Mm-hmm.
But I can say, God, the same grace you give me, can you give me a little bit of that
To
to help
extend
me
it.
forgive? Because I can't without His help.
Right.
I can't. So.
That's
And I
awesome.
think that comes back to what the Big C church, the church in America, needs to be doing.
Mhm.
Yes.
We need to be finding ways to extend God's grace
Mhm.
more than His rules.
Right.
And I think that's just a part of the journey. And I believe we are starting to come full circle.
Yeah.
Where I believe God wants to pour out His grace on us.
Yeah.
I believe God wants to pour out His favor on us. I believe that God wants to bless us beyond what we can imagine.
Yeah.
And as we continue to tap into His grace,
Mhm.
He helps us get there.
Yeah.
And so here's the way I would say it this way. The church has started to have pet sins.
Mhm.
And I'm not going to go down the last 30 years what they were, and that's not necessary, or even what this year's pet sin is.
Okay, go ahead.
But I'm going to say this. It's easy to sit in the church and say that is a heinous sin
Mm.
until you know someone with a face who struggles with that sin.
Mm.
And I think as the church, we've got to know that the person struggling with that sin has that face to Jesus, and they matter a great deal.
Absolutely.
And so that's where we get the grace,
Yeah.
because that's His kid. That's
Right.
His masterpiece.
Right.
That's His masterpiece that He formed.
Right.
And we get a chance to extend the grace to them that He's already extended to us.
Wow.
And when we live that way, the church has changed. The community has changed. People are changed because we're learning to be a conduit of God's grace
Mhm.
instead of a tool of His judgment.
Mm. Yeah.
Pastor Sarah, and to segue with what he's saying, when we talk about grace and we talk about vulnerability, okay?
Sure.
So when you have that person who is rather saved for 15 years or not, or doesn't know Christ at all, but you have that person who struggles with pornography.
Sure.
You have that person who struggles with hatred.
Sure.
You have that person who struggles with church hurt.
Sure.
You have that person who struggles with homosexuality.
Sure.
You have that person who struggles with just being a liar.
Uh-huh.
Or you have that person who struggles with being a thief. That same person, whether they be saved or unsaved.
Sure.
Pastor Sarah, expand on us when that person comes to you. How do you give that person grace, but at the same time, learn that person God's accountability?
I think at the
Here's the $5.
I'm thinking the word balance is coming.
Oh,
Absolutely.
it's good, Moses.
Talking about
Yes.
Balance or tension.
Yeah.
Choose your,
Right.
choose your
Yes. Yes.
I think so. The first word that comes to my mind is listen.
Mm.
Before I speak a word, I need to listen to all their words.
I need to hear, not because what I'm bringing is just what I see.
Okay.
But a person is so much more than what you see.
Right.
And so if there is a sin that they're struggling with,
Mhm.
the person, the struggle is more than one word. There is a past that has brought them to this.
It's not their
Oh.
identity.
And it's
Their
not
sin
right.
is not their identity.
Woo.
Even talk about, because different people are at a different point in where they're ready to confront
The
it.
journey. Yeah.
So, like you had said before, in bringing the hope and the message, I don't want to have a pre-scripted, what do I say to a person who is, because I don't know where they are in the journey of this progression.
Oh, that's so good.
So I have to
That's so
listen
good.
first.
Yeah.
And again, that also
Compassion.
establishes a safe place that says, I'm going to hear your heart.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm not here to judge you. I'm here to walk with you, but I can't walk with you until I know where you are.
Right.
Tell me about your journey.
Uh-huh.
Tell me about where you are. Because that's going to tell me too. It's very different if a person comes and says, I'm struggling with this,
Right.
or this is who I am and I'm happy with it. I dare you to tell me otherwise. Right? So what would my response would be very different based on the two. So listen, really is the first answer, I think, for me.
That's
But even
good.
that side,
Mhm.
I am who I am.
Yeah.
Accept me or leave me.
Mhm.
I do believe the first thing that should come from us is compassion.
Okay.
Compassion. Sometimes the church wants to go right to confrontation.
Yes.
You've made a mistake, and let me tell you how.
Right.
But if we would have compassion,
Right.
That's
for
good.
them.
Yeah.
That's
So
good.
yes, we can see the problem.
Right.
Yeah, maybe they've been hurt,
Right.
but we don't know the root. And if we just pull on the leaves,
Yes.
we can't help them get to health. Right? We've got to get to the root of the problem. And the compassion gives us the chance to find out what's going on. Have that conversation
Yeah.
so we can get on the same page and the same wavelength and let God do the convicting.
Because
We try to be the Holy Spirit.
We can't do God's job.
We try to be the Holy
That's
Spirit.
good. That's good. That's good.
Oh, say it again.
What? Say it again.
a quick fix is rarely a real fix. So I can look at somebody and say, stop doing that.
Right.
That's
But what is
awesome.
that, like a New Year's
But is that fixing the
resolution?
problem?
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
I'll stop doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's a root there
Right.
that's driven you to do that. And
Correct.
it's probably something that's deep-seated a lot longer
Deep embedded,
than
yeah.
just stop. And then what happens? If I say stop, and even if they say, okay, I'll stop today, then what situation are they being set up for when they're not able to stop the next day? Now, not only are they doing that, but they also feel condemned.
Sure.
Right.
They feel
Wow.
shame.
Yeah.
It's not behavior modification.
Right.
Sometimes the church slips into behavior modification instead of letting God work on the heart.
Right.
Because when He changes our heart, He changes from the inside out.
Yeah.
And then we can maintain that and walk down that road instead of trying to be like, I'm just going to pull myself up on my bootstraps.
Right.
You know, it's not, the church is not self-help.
And,
Right.
and I'll say, just to share experience, not major or anything like that, but a long time ago, when we were in youth ministry, I think God kind of showed me this in the snapshot. I was sitting with a teenage girl. She had walked, I didn't know the history she came out of. I knew she was causing trouble. And we were at a youth retreat, so she was in Hampton. And we
Mm.
were sitting, and so it was like an altar prayer time, and she was kind of sitting by herself. And I went and sat with her, and I was young and stuff, so just start listening and stuff. And I'm prepared to be like, how can I lovingly correct her?
Right.
You know?
Yes, yes,
And
yes.
she looked at me and she said, where was God when so-and-so molested?
Ooh.
Oh,
Wow.
okay,
And in that
Okay.
moment, I was like,
okay.
well, this girl doesn't need me to talk about her behaviors. This girl needs me to sit with her in her pain.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm so sorry for what, you know, and
Wow.
that
You
was
chill.
like that first, that got like, oh, I'm just looking at what I can see.
Right.
And I want to address what I can see when, thank God, he sees the heart.
Yeah.
Yep.
So God, will you give me a glimpse of the heart?
Yeah.
But then I have to be willing to sit and listen and carry and walk alongside. And through that, one of the things that, and one of our close friends, we walked through a lot of things together. And I say to her like all the time, and now she has said to me in the past few years,
Wow.
I will believe for you when you cannot believe for yourself.
Wow.
And but I can't do that if I don't know what I'm believing
Right.
for, you know? And so that's walking in that journey. And that's where you said, what does the church need to be willing to do?
Yes.
You need to sit and be patient in pain.
Yeah.
Wow.
We want to rush past because it looks more glamorous
Yeah.
on the other side.
Yeah.
But where was Jesus?
Right.
Jesus was dealing with the hurting and the broken when he
Right.
was unhurt. So
Wow.
we need to do that too.
Wow.
I love the principle that we as God's people and the church, we need to be Jesus with skin.
Mm.
You know, we need to embody who he is and what he's about.
Right.
And if you haven't heard the story, I'll just give it to you quick. There's this little girl, there's a thunderstorm, and she is scared.
Mhm.
And the thunder cracks, the lightning flashes, and she runs into mommy and daddy's room. Daddy, 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 I'm so scared.
Mhm.
He walks her back to the room, tucks her in, and says, Jesus is with you.
Mm.
You're good, right? You know Jesus is with you. Yeah, thank you. Goes back to bed,
Mhm.
thunder, lightning, back in his room. Daddy, daddy, daddy. I'm
Yeah,
scared.
yeah,
There's thunder.
Yeah.
There's
That
lightning.
didn't work what you did. Yeah.
Walks her back.
Yeah.
I told you, Jesus is with you.
Yeah.
Right? I put you in bed. You're good. He's fine.
Right.
Come back to the room one more time.
Mhm.
And Dad says, didn't I tell you that Jesus is with you?
Wow.
She said, yeah. But right now I need someone with skin on.
Mm.
We need to be Jesus with skin on. We need to be patient. We need to be
Right.
long suffering. We need to be accepting and gracious and let God's love shine through us.
Wow.
Because as his love shines through, his word's true when it says his love, perfect love, covers a multitude of sins. And that we can
that's
walk
good.
through that together as we continue to surrender our own need to judge
Yeah.
and be better
Yeah.
Yes.
for, I'm just going to love you.
Yeah.
I'm just going to love you like Jesus loves you.
Yeah.
Love you into the greatness you were designed for.
Amen to that.
Amen. Well, we're getting close to our time, and what we like to do with our 80,000, we like to play a little game,
Okay.
and so
Do we get to win?
we'll lead into the game, and then after that, Moses is going to ask you a very serious question, which is our last question for the night. Okay. So play again, greatest of all time.
Okay.
So I know you're a sports guy.
I am.
You are a sports guy.
I am.
All right. Michael Jordan or LeBron James?
Uh-oh.
Do you even have a real question? Do you even have a real question? MJ all day.
MJ?
MJ, because
MJ?
here's the deal. There's never been a point.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
There's never been any other player
Okay.
who won the steals title,
Whew.
who was defensive player, first all team,
Okay.
and led the league in scoring,
Okay.
and won the MVP, and won the MVP in the finals.
Uh,
MJ's the only one ever to do that all at the same time. I'm not saying LeBron isn't a great,
uh-huh.
but he is not the greatest.
The greatest.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
that's I mean, the stats just bear it out.
Okay.
It's over and over again. LeBron's great. I'm not trying to, and if there was a longevity award,
Uh-huh.
he could have that one.
All right.
But he's
All right.
the greatest of all.
But you're putting MJ number one.
MJ is
Okay.
number one. And I know that's hard for you as a
No.
kid. I'm not trying to get in a
No, you know, I'm cool with all day long, but okay.
But
All right.
MJ,
All right.
MJ.
All right. Pastor Sarah,
Is it gonna be the same question?
Forrest Gump.
Oh,
Hold on, hold on.
Answer his question.
No, greatest of all. Oh, yes, you can. Go ahead.
Well, it's just gonna give you a snapshot.
Okay.
Right? You know how much my husband loves his sports. Right? So
Absolutely.
you want this little snapshot into.
I want a snapshot. Yeah.
If
Okay.
you would have asked me when we got married,
Uh-huh.
do you like sports? I'd been like, yeah, sure, I like sports.
Yeah.
I'm at the Gillott.
Right.
Married.
That's good. That's good. That's good.
We were watching sports together.
Uh-huh.
He's watching loosely for me because I'm like, everyone.
Right.
So I would say Michael Jordan because I don't prefer LeBron James' silence.
Oh, wow.
But
Wow.
we would
Okay.
be watching, and it would be the funny thing because he would say like, "Oh, so and so's player," and we watch football or something, and I'd be like, "Oh, hey, I never knew that's what that guy looks like." He's like, "What are you talking about? His headshot right there." That's I'm not paying attention to any of the play. I'm interested in the players.
Okay.
Sometimes I would say LeBron just because I like to antagonize and be a counterpoint. To
I got you.
But,
I
But
got
she
you.
knows the truth.
I got
I'll
you.
go Michael Jordan. I also go Michael Jordan only because that would be my childhood.
Okay. All right. Forrest Gump or Pretty Woman, greatest of all time.
Oh.
We're talking about overall.
Okay.
Are we talking about the actors, the movie, everything? Greatest of all time.
Okay.
Forrest Gump or Pretty Woman?
This could be too far of a reveal. Hold your podcast.
I apologize in advance.
That I have never actually seen either of them.
Really? Goodness gracious.
Not in the 80s.
Okay.
Yes, I'm not young.
Okay.
But tell not her. I grew up in a house I was not allowed to watch very many movies growing up.
Okay.
My husband has introduced me to a lot of movies throughout the years.
All right.
I asked him if Star Wars was real or parody when I watched it because I was like in my 30s and I'm like, really? This is
Okay.
Because
Okay.
that's
Okay. So we'll ask you an easier one.
Sooner I've done it for.
We'll ask you an easier one. The 80s or the 90s?
Oh.
Greatest of all time.
I'm gonna go
90s. Okay. Okay.
That was my heyday for my age bracket.
Wow.
So, I love 80s music.
Wow.
Back to 80s music. But I wasn't old enough to really enjoy the 80s styles, whereas once I was in the 90s, I can remember buying all those things and looking forward to
Yes.
So
Yes.
Acid wash
I'm
jeans.
actually a girl of the 90s. Yeah.
Really? Really?
Because those were my teens.
All right. Traveling. Airplane or driving in the car?
Well, I want to hear yours first. He's the one who does all the driving.
So you now listen. You're going to California.
Oh,
And-
California.
Hold on. This is just an example. You're going to California, and Bernie comes to you. He says, "Hey, we can either drive. It's going to be 3 days, or we can fly. It's going to be about 8 hours. Which one?
Here's the question: do we get to stop at strategic places along the way?
Whatever you want to do. Whatever you want to do. You're driving or you're flying. What are you doing?"
That's easy. For me, that's easy.
Well, okay, what's your answer?
Because we can make so many memories along the way. You can hit the Grand Canyon.
Wow. Wow.
You can take in Yellowstone Park.
Wow.
You can be strategic. Like one
Wow.
of my favorite things we've ever done as a family. There's two like family if you want to quote Inside Out, what are they called? Core memories.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
is-
Yes.
Is in 2021, our family went out and visited my brother-in-law who lived in Colorado for a year, and we had the chance to fly to Flagstaff. But then we rented a car. We went to Sedona.
Oh, wow.
Then we went to the Grand Canyon. And then we
Awesome.
drove 12 hours through the Grand Canyon up to Colorado Springs.
Wow.
And we went to the Garden of the Gods. And we went here and we went there. We went everywhere. And those memories, watching the sunrise with my kids and my wife, is a memory you can never take away from
Come on
being in
now.
the Grand Canyon. So now, did I enjoy being all the way out there flying? And
Yeah.
But if I had to choose between getting there
Uh-huh.
and enjoying all the way there,
Yeah.
I think I would drive.
All right, Pastor Sarah.
My cutoff's 20 hours.
All right. So you're flying. You're flying. You're flying. You're flying. That's good. That's good. That's good. That's good. That's good.
Is when we went to South Africa on a missions trip,
Okay.
and we had a chance to go on. Someone paid for us to go on a 3-day safari.
Wow.
And it was mind-boggling. And like watching a What was the animal that you were scared that I was taking too many pictures
Oh, the
of?
cheetah.
Oh my gosh.
From here to there.
No.
I would have been scared.
She looks like this and goes, at us. And my wife says,
Stop it.
so I would say I would absolutely fly to South Africa with the family again because that was mind-boggling. And I would love to do it again. Would you do it again?
No, you can't drive to Africa.
Right. Facts. Facts. Facts.
Yes,
Facts. Facts.
That flight was 18 hours.
Oh my
Goodness
God.
gracious.
Just the one flight was 18
Yeah.
hours.
Okay.
Yeah. So, no,
All right.
my cutoff's fine. Less than 20, I would drive it because you're going to spend more time in that driving to the airport, going through security, doing all that.
Gotcha.
Getting your baggage.
Yes.
I will drive.
Yes.
20, we're in the car. We get there.
Okay.
I'm good with flying. I'm
All
good with flying.
Moses, let's lead into our last question.
Our last question. Obviously, our podcast is 80 or 80,000 years. Are
Yes.
you living, or are you making decisions based upon how you want to live for 80 years? Or are you making the decisions based upon how you want to live for 80,000 years into eternity?
We say all the time at Connection Church, every decision we make is creating culture. And so we want to be a church that is creating a culture that's going to stand the test of time. So that it outlasts our ability to lead it. So that it outlasts our ability to predict it or visionize it. We want to make good decisions and set up a foundation that won't outlast us. And that's an easy one. I would rather be able to say that we were faithful than famous.
There you go.
I want
I like
to
that.
know that.
Bars.
Faithful,
Yeah.
not famous.
Yeah.
Because guess what? It's like the kid on the seashore who watched the tide come in, and it came in fast, and it went back out,
Yep.
and all of the starfish are on the seashore, and there's thousands and thousands, and the kid's running down the seashore, and he's throwing one in, he's picking up another, he's throwing one in, and this wise old man walks up to him and says, "You do realize you'll never make a difference. There's thousands of starfish here."
Wow.
And he picks up a starfish, and he throws it in the water, and he says, "Made a difference for that one. I made a difference for that one."
Wow.
Our job is to make a difference for the one as many times as we can.
Amen.
Yeah, that's thing on source of that. And then
Yes.
I live that I don't care if anyone ever knows or remembers my name. I just want them to still experience the ripple.
Amen.
Like if you drop a stone in the water,
Right.
you might
Definitely.
never see that stone, what the stone was that started it,
Mhm.
but the ripple goes out that way.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so what we plant, what we do, wherever we've been, any church we've been at, we say, we just want to know that we were faithful there so that God can keep doing whatever was started.
Wow.
when we were there.
That's
Because
amazing.
it's bigger than us.
That's amazing. Finish this statement. It is 2025 right now. In the year 2125, which is 100 years from now, and I'm going to touch both of you. Pastor Bernie was a
Loving father and husband.
Pastor Sarah was a
Was obedient and faithful.
That's good. That's good.
I say to my kids all the time, I can't be a successful pastor and fail as a father. If I fail as a father, all the pastor stuff's gone.
Yes.
All the pastor stuff was a waste. That's a performance. What matters is what happens in my own home. Do my kids know I love them unconditionally and they don't have to be perfect? And when someone else says they did something wrong, I'm going to say it's okay. Let's not do it again.
What's making you emotional? I see it. I feel it. When he asked you, what touched you?
I am so humbled by the wife that I have, the life that I have, and the kids that God has entrusted to us. You know, like one of my favorite things about parts of Connection Church is God's blessed me with incredibly musically gifted kids. Tomorrow morning, I get to wake up and I'm going to get to lead worship with my kids and my wife. And we're going to get to lead people into God's presence with the talents that He gave us. And I think that's every dad's dream. To be able to minister and to be a part of something with your kids, and your kids believe in what you're doing so much, Do you know my kids were ready to plant a church 2 years before I was?
Wow.
Do you know my wife was ready to plant a church 2 years before I was? And now I get to do something that they love and they want to do, and we get to do it together.
Amen.
Wow.
And so, and I'm a softie. Steph knows I cry a lot.
That's great.
Bless you.
Great. Well, we appreciate having you both. Round of applause.
Yes. We want to thank Pastor Bernie, Pastor Sarah. This has been an amazing podcast. We want to thank you guys for watching. We want to thank you guys for listening. We ask that you anticipate the next 80 for 80,000, and we want to say good night. All right.